Tonight, more vandalism. Again, Matthews Park in Fort St. John, the target. Drug bust. Mounties search a residence at a mobile home park. And Dawson Creek students learn about the science of sports. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with yet another case of vandalism in Fort St. John. Mounties saying once again Matthews Park was the target. Fort St. John RCMP asking the public for any information. What looks like a head of a cat in a mushroom was found painted inside a bathroom. Police say the vandalism happened at Matthews Park on October the 6th. This incident adds to the number of prior vandalisms in Fort St. John's over the years. Bathrooms in Matthews Park were targeted twice in 2022. Many businesses, homes, and parks were also hit by graffiti last year. The Treaty 8 building was targeted by racist graffiti earlier this year. Well, the city's been integrating public art across Fort St. John to help deter vandalism. It's unclear if these incidents are an act of a single group or are unrelated. The RCMP says no witnesses have been identified for the recent incident in Matthews Park. And police in Fort St. John arresting a number of people after a search of a residence at the Peace Country Mobile Home Park. The RCMP saying tonight the home is well known to police. The search resulting in 8 individuals being arrested. And police say they seized a loaded pistol, drugs, and money. They also found thousands of dollars worth of tools that were allegedly stolen. Now, Mounties say one suspect was held in custody due to breaching her court conditions, but they say the other suspects have been released pending the completion of their investigation. And the Fort St. John RCMP are searching for a missing 16-year-old. Mounties say Kiara Blue has not been seen nor heard from for the past 5 days, and police add they have reason to be concerned for her well-being. Blue is believed to be in the Fort St. John area, and she's being associated with a white 2013 Dodge Ram pickup. She's being described as standing 5 feet 6 inches tall with a slender build. She has a medium-length red hair and brown eyes. If you have any information on her whereabouts, you are being urged to call police at the number listed at the bottom of your screen. And Mounties in Fort St. John asking for the public's help in finding a man wanted on a number of outstanding warrants. Police are looking for Nicholas Stafford. The 34-year-old is currently wanted on numerous warrants, including robbery, theft, and possession of property obtained by crime under $5,000. Stafford is being described as standing 6 feet 2 inches tall, weighing 253 pounds. He has brown and red hair and brown eyes. Anyone with any information regarding Stafford is being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP or Crime Stoppers. Well, the Peace River Regional District approving the construction of a new administration building. Chair Brad Sperling saying it'll be located on the downtown lot, formerly the home of the Centennial Pool in Dawson Creek. The cost is expected to be just under $20 million. Sperling says they've been looking at this for several years as the current building is over 60 years old. The PRRD putting money aside years ago, and Sperling saying they'll be relying on grants and borrowing under $6 million to finance the project. That loan is expected to be paid off in 5 to 7 years. Fort St. John City Council approving close to $1.7 million to add a new pavilion to Serraris Park. The city says the current pavilion was old and had to be closed in the spring. Bathrooms no longer met standards and temporary washrooms all had to be used all summer. The city says the new pavilion will include 4 washrooms, storage, and a rental area. It'll be built south of the existing building. Well, the city had to have option to have construction done earlier for extra costs, but decided to stick to the regular timeline. The pavilion is expected to open around the end of next September. The upgrade is part of a larger project at Serraris Park. The city plans to add a new playground, courts for different sports, a dog park, as well as other upgrades. Well, dozens of people are mourning and honoring women killed in BC this year. They took to the steps of the legislature in Victoria today in a call to action against femicide. The UN defines femicide as the intentional killing of women driven by discrimination, unequal power dynamics, and harmful social norms. Women's support workers say this year they know of 15 cases of femicide across BC. They want men with a history of violence against women to be remanded while awaiting trial. They're also calling for financial supports that would help women leave abusive relationships.
An ever-present issue where men see women as someone or something to be controlled, and because it's violence that happens behind closed doors, something considered that in private, there is a tendency for society to just accept it and let it happen.
The Vigil falls on the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And the province is launching an independent review of post-secondary schools. The goal is to strengthen sustainability and secure a skilled workforce for the future. The review, called Look West, is headed by former Deputy Education Minister Dan Avison. It's looking at ways to keep the system accessible, affordable, and aligned with the province's economic priorities. The province says post-secondary schools are facing significant financial pressures due to a federal reduction in study permits for international students, global inflation, and declining domestic enrollment. While a similar report was done 3 years ago, the province says it does not address the current environment. Avison will deliver a report by this March. Well, voters in Alberta are now pushing to have more members of Danielle Smith's party recalled. Almost a third of all Smith's MLAs are now at the center of recall campaigns. Service Minister Dale Nally is one of the latest members.
This is clearly a case of a left-wing activist group, Alberta Resistance, that is using recall, that is weaponizing it to force a general election.
Okay, we're going to take one more. Why are you attacking the man's voting record? Also, he tells me it's not true that he does actually vote in provincial elections.
Okay, I'm not going to comment on any specifics.
Nolan Dick, the MLA from Grand Prairie, is one of the 14 UCP MLAs facing a recall campaign. Now, under the Alberta Election Act, the applicant has 90 days to collect enough names from people across the constituency. Well, we could be just days away from an agreement between the Alberta government and the feds to move forward on a new pipeline. Prime Minister Mark Carney will be in Calgary on Thursday. Sources say he and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith will sign a memorandum of understanding. Mike Couture has more on the proposed pipeline and British Columbia's continued strong opposition to the project.
We fought successfully, I might add, so many pipeline battles in British Columbia.
A stern warning from the president of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. His group is firmly behind coastal First Nations in opposing a pipeline in that region.
At the end of the day, if things go sideways, then we're out on the ground. We're, at the designated sites.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip wouldn't say if that could include rail and road blockades like those that sprung up in 2020 in support of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs who were protesting another energy project.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants to know when the signing of a memorandum of understanding with Alberta will lead to shovels in the ground.
On what date will construction begin on a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific?
Prime Minister Mark Carney said that's not the point of the agreement.
The memorandum of understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions but not sufficient conditions because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree and support.
BC's premier is against a proposed pipeline, and one former deputy minister of the environment is concerned ecological impacts aren't being considered.
Last year, the world had 10 oil tanker spills, so this is a serious concern for the North Coast, and of course the impacts on climates.
While the Prime Minister was talking about collaboration with provinces, Minister of Natural Resources Tim Hodgson reminded Canadians that the ultimate jurisdiction for interprovincial pipelines rests with the federal government. Mike Couture, CTV News, Ottawa.
And the Prime Minister is walking back his comments today on stalled trade talks with the United States. The Conservatives slammed Mark Carney for saying, "Who cares?" when asked about the talks. Well, in question period today, Carney called those comments a poor choice of words.
I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue. And the serious issue is what progress are we making structurally? Best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals in the world.
He's made many mistakes. In fact, it's been nothing but mistakes when it's come to trade. Look at it. This Prime Minister promised that he would negotiate a win On softwood lumber, now he says, who cares? Well, conservatives cared.
A federal government source says Carney could head to the United States Capitol as early as next week. And if Carney does make the trip, it will be his third visit since his election win in April. But it would be the first trip since Trump halted trade talks back in October. And the federal government is not committing to the expert roadmap for a national pharmacare system. Health Minister Marjorie Michel says the government is still reviewing the recommendations. She stressed the advice is non-binding. The expert committee's report released last Friday calls for a national list of essential medications and federal funding to make those drugs free with a health card. But Michel says healthcare is a provincial responsibility, and her job is to work with partners, not override them. New data reveals the legalization of cannabis has sparked a massive windfall for federal and provincial governments across Canada. The country and provinces racked up over $5 billion in cannabis revenue since it was legalized back in 2018. Just over $1 billion of that went to Ottawa. The only province that didn't cash in was Manitoba, which doesn't take part in the federally managed taxation framework. The information was made available after a Conservative member of Parliament requested a breakdown of cannabis revenue. Well, a bit of good news tonight for the beleaguered auto industry in Southern Ontario. Stellantis says it will bring back a third shift at its Windsor assembly plant this February. The move will lead to the creation of 1,400 jobs. The shift was originally eliminated 5 years ago. Workers who've been recently laid off from the Stellantis plant in Brampton, which is moving production to Illinois, will have the first chance to apply for the new jobs. And in Washington, the White House is projecting optimism as a possible peace deal to end the war in Ukraine. But as the talks continue, so does the fighting. With more, here's Joy Melvin.
Even with peace proposals on the table, Moscow is not letting up. Overnight, hundreds of drones and missiles pounded Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. A massive, deadly attack. Officials rescuing children from an apartment complex. This after talks in Geneva produced a framework for a possible peace deal.
Today, our team reported on the new draft of steps, and this is indeed the right approach. I will discuss sensitive issues with President Trump.
Ukraine's president wants to meet President Donald Trump in the next few days to finalize details of a new 19-point plan, heavily modified from the original proposal that critics called a Russian wish list that had Ukraine handing over territory to Russia, slashing Ukraine's army, and renouncing NATO membership.
We have no compromise on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. No compromise on national identity on Ukraine. No compromise on the armed forces of Ukraine as a key security guarantee.
Washington insists these aren't insurmountable details, sending U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll to meet with Russian officials in the United Arab Emirates. But even after that red carpet rollout in Anchorage last summer, Russia's Vladimir Putin has not budged.
President Trump was not able to get anything from Russia. He was not even able to get them to come to a ceasefire, something that Ukraine agreed a while ago. And so while these negotiations happen, Russia continues attacking us.
Donald Trump weighing in, saying tremendous progress has been made, but says he'll only meet with President Zelensky and President Putin when the deal to end this war is final or in its final stages. Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
Well, to Paris now, where French police say 4 more people have been arrested in connection to the daring jewel heist at the famed Louvre Museum. According to officials, 2 men and 2 women from the Paris region have been taken into custody. But the loot, valued at more than $100 million, has still not been recovered. It includes a diamond and emerald necklace that Napoleon gave to Empress Marie-Louise. Back here at home, Science World touring elementary schools in Dawson Creek with a new show called The Science of Sports. Presenter Chelsea Stite says the show is meant to spark curiosity and do it in a joyful way.
The kids in Dawson Creek are so excited about science and sport. At the beginning of the show, we always ask who likes sports, who likes science, and who likes shows? And the kids' response to all 3 questions is just like overwhelming enthusiasm.
Science World visiting 8 elementary schools in and around the city. The show explores the physics, health, and technology making sports so powerful. Kids play a large part in the presentation as they participate in many fun activities. And Stite says kids learn through play, energy, and having fun. She says our biggest goal is to leave them with this excitement around the idea of science because it's in every aspect of their lives. The principal at Frank Ross Elementary says a kid's first exposure to sports is often at school, and he says so to have Science World presenting in our community is a very special thing. All right, please stay tuned. Noah will be right back with weather.